And here we go, guys. What's up? Welcome back to Jake, James, and Friends. Got a great episode for you today. Got Fritz with me.
Good to be here.
Fritz, what's up, man?
I'm just having a great day. You know, That's another day in the life.
Just enjoying downtown Phoenix?
You could say that.
Yeah? Is it wearing on you?
It's getting old. I'm ready. I'm ready for somewhere else. I think my lease rolls in like 3-4 months. So I think that's the end.
Yeah, where are you gonna go?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I don't know. You got Tampa, Scottsdale, all
Okay.
kinds. I could go Salt Lake City. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to figure out, and I don't have a ton of time to do it. So it's
Okay.
exciting. It's an exciting thing to think about. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
the nice part about you is you got a lot of options. You'll be able to make waves anywhere you go, right?
Yeah, it's when I look at the distribution of, because Instagram tells you a little bit about where your followers are located.
Yeah.
And when I look at where the people who follow me online, they're everywhere. Like it's like a third of a percent are here in Phoenix, a third of a percent are in New York. They're scattered all across the country mostly. So.
Yeah.
Anywhere I go, I'm gonna have cool people I can meet. It's an exciting prospect.
I love it, man. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because you've had one of the most legendary rises I've ever seen, to be honest with you. And I've seen a lot of rises, you know what I mean? So just to kind of set the tone here, you started your Instagram account last October, right? Under a year ago?
Instagram, yeah, I started Instagram about last October.
Yeah.
I posted a few videos on YouTube a couple months before that, but it really kicked off in October, yeah.
Okay, so you went from zero, where are you at right now?
420,000.
420,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you describe your online presence?
Man, it's a mess. No, but I've done a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
I've talked about because one of my big things though is that I am autistic. I was diagnosed by a doctor when I was like 5 years old or something. Then again later, and it's that's been a very kind of compelling, but also challenging part of my life is that figuring out how to exist as a person who is wired differently, whose brain just doesn't work the same way. And so what I've found is that people really vibe with that, telling my story, my perspectives, how things are different for me. But then I also really get a lot out of, I've kind of been diving into the social skills and the dating side of stuff too. I have this slogan that I didn't come up with this, but I am proud of it. It's great. I call it RISM with autism. Because when you think about the autistic guy, stereotypically, it's not a pretty picture. He's the Magic the Gathering player, which more power to him. I'm not shaming that hobby, but it's you kind of have a picture, and if I can change that picture a little bit, to be they can be other things as well.
Yeah,
I like the idea of being able to do that.
Yeah. So I found you at the height of the RISM with autism section. I've seen you go in different directions, just a little bit. You're always you, but
sure.
You have different things that you kind of focus on. You know, whether it's meeting people, new friends, living in a city, relationships. You know what I mean? But I found you at the RISM with autism part, and in fact, that was your tag for a while, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't think so. Oh, yeah, I actually do. So, funny story. There's this before RISM with autism ever came into the picture.
Yeah.
I had this concept called autism. Like it's the same thing, but it's it's autism plus Riz. And I actually own the trademark for autism. I do. It's only for shirts and hats, but I do own that trademark. You can look it up on the patent office. You'll see Frederick Johnson right under that. Yeah. And it's autism was kind of my signature thing for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where did you grow up at?
I'm from small town California.
Okay.
Original kind of Fresno, but before that, 5 Points, which no one has ever heard of.
Yeah.
But I've had a very unusual path from birth to roughly 22. I grew up in Fresno, Clovis, that area in California. But then when I was like 14 or 15, I got kidnapped by my parents. And they shipped me off to a program in Utah for people who were it's the troubled teen industry. If you've ever heard that phrase,
is it like the horseback riding thing?
We didn't do that, but that was
okay.
there was
same concept.
Related, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you feel like they did that?
They had to, frankly.
Were you
I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't violent. I wasn't being dangerous.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't. I was refusing to go to school. I was miserable. I guess I was dangerous just to myself. But that's another conversation.
Did you have a hard time in school at the time?
I hated school. School was the worst, because the thing about school is that they really have their picture of what a student should be.
Yeah.
And if you are not that, they're going to give you a hard time.
You're just screwed.
And what ended up happening is I like to think I'm at least reasonably articulate, and I am smart. I'm smart enough to be a software engineer, so something there.
Seriously, right?
But
didn't you work on Wall Street?
I did. That was the next part of my story.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But the thing about I actually got put in special education, like not the really intensive stuff, but the next tier up that my school had, and it was just I didn't belong there at all.
Did you know it too?
No, yeah, it was obvious. It was the kind of thing where I had a hard time not arguing with teachers. I was very disrespectful at different points because I thought the teachers were stupid, and some of them were.
Yeah.
But the thing about but then they shipped me off and they put me in special education, and that was just like, what? Come on! I'm reading The Economist magazine. I am reading at a college level. I do not belong with people who can barely write.
Yeah.
And it's like more power. I'm not hating on them either, but it's just like, come on. The school system does not serve people like me well, and that is especially with the public school system, and that's what my parents had to get me out of.
Okay,
because
so what was that? Was it a camp?
So it started at a camp kind of thing. It was we drove around in vans and marched around different parts of Utah.
Okay, I want to slow this down just a little bit because I am actually curious about this part. Okay, so tell me about the day you got kidnapped.
All right, so it was 3 a.m. At
3 a.m.
3 a.m. Yeah, they always do it in the middle of the night because that way less chance the neighbors freak out or whatever.
Yeah.
Easier to catch the kid unawares. But I was actually sleeping in this recliner that was in our living room, and I still remember the moment I woke up and I was like, "Wow, there are the two gigantic men, even by my standards, because I'm 6'6". But these two gigantic men standing over me and looking down at me, and then I saw my parents in the corner of the room, and I was like, it was the most bizarre, terrifying, wild experience of my life, saying, well, what's going on? And so they explained to me, hey, we're going to take you to this camp or whatever. And I was like, do I get a choice? No, you don't get a choice in the matter. They didn't laugh, but I did, looking back on it. But no, yeah. And so they put me in this back of this van. I guess it was an SUV. Mm-hmm. Usually they handcuff you and they put you in a spit guard if you fight back. I decided not to fight back, which was, by the way, the right choice. If this ever happens to you, if you're like 14 or something, just go with it. You're not getting away. So I just went with it. They drove me down from Fresno to LA. Flew me to Salt Lake City, and that was that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So once you got there, what was that like initially?
Yeah. So,
you have no idea. Like they might have explained it a little bit, but you're like, where am I? Why am I here? What is going on? Right?
Yeah. It was explained to me as a camp at first, which is mostly true.
Yeah.
Basically, like they took me to this. Their kind of home base thing is this facility somewhere in the suburbs somewhere
in Utah.
In Utah, yeah.
Salt Lake City.
It was near Salt Lake. I think it was one of the suburbs. And they just they took they gave me new clothes to change into, explained what was going on a little bit, and then that was they gave me a bag of food, a suit, a tarp, a sleeping bag, and it was some boots, and I was off to it.
How long were you there?
Oh, this is a point of contention. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 10 weeks, a little over 2 months.
10 weeks, really? Wow.
And so that doesn't sound so bad if it's just a camp.
Yeah.
But the thing was, we were always just we weren't camping in this. We were sleeping under tarps. It wasn't these weren't cabins or anything. These were just we drove in a van to some stretch of BLM federal land, and then we just kind of. We marched around until we got bored until the end of the weekend, and then we did it again.
Really? What were the other people like? The other kids?
It was a big mix because part of it was a wilderness therapy program or an adventure therapy program was what it was called. And the thing about this, they usually use those to assess where you should go next. Because everyone who goes there usually goes somewhere to a different program after that, like I did.
So if you go and you're like, oh, the woods are cool, I'm having a good time, they're like, yeah, he's probably fine, right?
I mean, I don't know about that. But they kind of decide how much support, if you want to call it that you need, how much control they need to have over you.
Okay.
And I was reasonably compliant, so they put me in a reasonably gentle program.
Yeah.
But it gets pretty dark at some of those.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that it shouldn't, but it's some kids really have problems. But It's a trade-off for sure.
Okay. So once that was over, like, how do you feel like that, like, affected, like, the rest of your growing up then? Like, are you super conscious of, like, that in the back of your mind, or did you rebel even more?
No, actually, I think that it did me a lot of good, and this is something that a lot of people might get mad at me for saying, because a lot of people really take issue with the idea of parents kidnapping their children and shipping them off to some third party to raise their kids. Right. It's a reasonable thing to get mad at, but I think that for me, I really, really needed to. Something needed to change, and that was it.
Okay.
It was. I would not have lived to 18 otherwise.
You really think that?
I would have killed myself for sure.
Really?
100%.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here, man.
And me too.
Yeah.
But it was. And so the fact that so just being alive is one of the biggest impacts. Obviously, that's nice. But
that makes sense. I wouldn't have thought about it from that perspective, but that is actually really
things were dark, man. It was life as a autistic teenager is hard. It's miserable because you go to school, high school every day. You walk around, you see everyone else having friends, and you just don't.
Right.
You don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to do any of that stuff. And then you have to do homework, and you hate it, and everything is awful. And that's a frustrating state of affairs.
Now, did you take that experience to college with you, or did things change?
So I went to college twice. I did two different stretches in community college. I only passed one class across both of them, and that one class was beach volleyball. So I took a stab at college. It was not an honest effort, but it was an effort.
Okay.
I think that the attitude I had in school, in high school, and treatment was pretty much the same as the one I had in college, and that didn't really work out for me.
Yeah.
I think that I had a hard time just sitting and listening to professors, for instance, when I knew they were saying something I didn't agree with or that it was wrong.
Right.
I was very argumentative, and that just not a great way to go through it. So
that
attitude towards college. There was one really great part about community college. I went to Santa Barbara City College for a while.
Okay.
And I met some really cool people there.
Yeah.
The teachers were mostly fine, but the students the people I was there with, it changed my life.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Zach who started inviting me to parties, bringing me along, and that was really the start of my journey into being socially passable, if you want to call it that. That was where that all began.
You started having some more fun, right?
I had fun. I felt accepted by some people. It just life was so much better once I had people who wanted me to be there in it.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal.
I feel that, my first few years in Arizona, I didn't know a lot of people.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people, but I didn't have a lot of friends.
That's
what I
the
mean?
thing, yeah.
And then, when I got into comedy out here and I started going, to open mics and comedy shows, and I started meeting all of these other comedians, and those are the people that, for me, I'm most attracted to now. Is because those are the people that make me feel like I'm part of something. You know what I mean? So once you get that experience, it really changes your whole perspective on wherever you're at, right?
Absolutely. No, that's one of the hardest parts about Arizona for me so far is that, in Austin, Texas, I really built a community. That was one of my first stops after I failed out of community college the second time.
Okay.
Is I went to Austin, Texas to do some software engineering work.
Okay.
And we'll get to that in two. I get tube, I guess. But the thing about Austin is that I really built a tribe around myself. And I found people like a community I could be part of.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened here, not yet. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of looking to move on and maybe try again somewhere else, or try to fix that. But one or the other. It's something needs to change in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even me, I go through that too. You know what I'm saying? I'm going through a nomad stage right now. I work in sales, and it's going really, really well, and it's given me the ability to kind of move around and try new things. So I've been staying in lots of Airbnbs, trying new different buildings in different parts of the cities, and just seeing what's out there. Because I have a kid, so I can't necessarily leave Phoenix, but it's just I keep experimenting with different parts within Phoenix. You know what I mean?
One of the happiest and most bizarre guys I know is going really hard on the nomad thing right now. And I think that it makes sense in a way it didn't used to for a lot of people. Remote work and all that other stuff I've thought a lot about that. There's this cruise coming up that's to teach people about the Nomad cruise coming from Alaska to Japan. And it's,
sweet.
I'm not sure I'm getting at this, but it's the kind of thing where that lifestyle of, just experiencing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I have a weakly held belief that life feels longer if you do a lot of different things. If you're doing the same thing every day, the time passes faster. And I'd rather live a long life than a short life. So I don't know.
I love that, man. That's amazing.
Nomad kind of that whole nomad life style plays into that.
Yeah, and I just think that's we're in a place in society where people are sick of the norms and the old conventional ways of doing things. Where you know what I mean? Where it's just how can we do things a little bit differently so it doesn't suck so bad?
It's kind of funny when you think about it, right? Because the best deal that society offers that is safe and kind of straightforward isn't that great. You have to do something different if you're going to do something awesome. That's how I see it, at least. I don't know. I'm not trying to disparage people who take the more normal, safer, more traditional route by any means, but it's the kind of thing where I always find myself at my happiest when I'm doing something that is a little off the beaten path.
100%. I mean, I did all the traditional stuff. When I was younger, I got married. I had a kid. I had a family. I did all of that. You know what I mean? I was a construction worker for a while. You know what I'm saying? And that was cool. There's lots of good memories, but like the whole time I knew I wasn't being myself.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't fulfilling my destiny that I kind of always felt like I had. And now I'm in this place where I get to do that. I do the podcast and I do comedy and I meet people like you. You know, life is beautiful right now. You know what I mean? But it's also still stressful and anxiety inducing because like there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's like if you don't close deals, you don't make money, and it's just like, you know, everything else, like it has its own stresses, but like they're more tolerable when you feel like you're doing something that's more meaningful, you know?
I feel that, yeah, for sure. It's I've worked kind of a box checking job. I worked on Wall Street for a while, as you mentioned.
How did you get there?
You know, it's kind of wild, honestly, because I taught myself how to code when I was like 20, 21. I'd done a little bit before, but I was really took it in earnest when I was 21 or 21. I was living with my mom, kind of just doing my thing there. And so I taught myself some skills, and then I did a little contract gigs here and there. But eventually I applied to this job on Wall Street. It was kind of a long shot, felt like at the time, but I was like, well, I've done some similar stuff, and I pointed to some of the work I've done that's publicly available online, right? Yeah. And they were like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll give you a shot. So they flew me out to New York for an interview. Yeah. Apparently I did really well in that interview, so that was fun. And then they brought me on, and I was making 150 plus like 150K for the base salary, and then a lot more for variable comp. But it was a really exciting thing for me because I felt like I was being taken seriously in a way that I didn't even necessarily take myself seriously. Yeah, and that's that was a powerful feeling to kind of feel valuable and useful. And,
did it feel good to be in New York City?
New York City was incredible. The work itself was manageable, but kind of it was boring and unfun. But at the same time, it was a pretty good gig because I was only working 40 hours a week, which is great for Wall Street. A lot of 100-hour, 80-hour weeks out there. I was doing half that.
Okay.
But no, the thing that I really loved about New York was just that everyone there was freaking on it. They were going for it, and like whatever it was, they were trying to at least the guys. I hate to say it, with a lot of trust fund babies on the other side of the aisle. Yeah, but it's there's something about being in a place where everyone is either has already made it or is trying to make it big. There's something really powerful about that. It drives you forward as a person.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, what did you actually do in Wall Street? Like, were you doing dev work?
Yeah, I was a software engineer. I was building data pipelines basically for a private equity firm, a growth equity firm specifically, that was investing in software companies. So I was helping them I was building tools that helped them find those companies they wanted to buy, like private companies. Okay. So that was obviously valuable work, but it was it was sometimes a little dry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so how'd you get to Phoenix then?
I got fired. Okay. No, but I got fired, and it was just kind of. It was a matter of time, frankly. Was
it one of those things where you kind of just let it happen?
Let's see how long this lasts. I was never a great employee, and then I made a couple meaningful mistakes that showed I wasn't super excited about the job. Yeah, and that was enough to kind of. I think that was why they gradually pulled the plug. Yeah, and once I got canned, I tried to find another job in New York. Couldn't make it happen in time. Yep. And so one morning I said, enough's enough. And I made the decision around 9 a.m. and by 11:30 p.m. that night, I was staying in a hotel out in Tempe.
Really?
True story. Yeah. Wow. I just threw everything away except for what I could carry with me. Yeah. I've actually got a photo on my Twitter where I've got a suitcase, a backpack, and a bottle of Fanta, and that is everything I own in the world except for the clothes on my back. Yeah. It was a really sad day, but that was a really powerful experience. Yeah, it was just not having everything.
It's a true fresh start.
Only having what I could carry with me. Yeah, that was powerful.
How long ago was that?
Oh, I got here late September of last year.
Okay, so you got here in September, and you started an Instagram in October, or a year later?
No, it was. Well, I started the Instagram roughly when I got here.
Roughly when you got here. So you had at least social media success pretty immediately, right?
I mean, yeah, it's I was only doing my very first few videos started in maybe July of that year.
What made you do that in the first place?
I was just bored, and I was bored, and I felt like I wasn't fulfilling doing anything I was passionate about in my job. Yeah. Because this was before I got fired. I got fired in, I think it was early August. Okay. But so I started in early July, I think, and a month later I got canned. But the passion there was I needed something I was passionate about, and that was I started making videos about how I was walking around trying to lose weight, trying to be healthy, and so I was going to walk across the country, but only do it I was walk as far as it would be across the country, in a year by just walking around New York.
Okay.
And so that was the idea.
Yeah.
But didn't last. I didn't have the willpower, and I also got fired. But it was it was a fun adventure.
Yeah. Okay. So what were those first few videos like on Instagram?
On Instagram specifically, my first few videos, I made one about this woman that I saw speaking at a kind of talk one time called Temple Grandin. She's a very famous autistic person.
Okay.
And she speaks now. She does work with cattle, but what I'm getting at is that she changed my life dramatically by just kind of taking a second to talk to me while I was asking a question. But she changed my life really in a really compelling fashion, and I told a story about that, and that was one of my first big hits.
Okay.
And then after that, I made a video about how I was buying orange juice for this one. I kept going to this diner. So let me start over. I made a video about how I went to this diner every day for a week straight.
Yeah.
And the same waitress was there every time.
Yeah.
And each time I bought 2 glasses of orange juice.
Yeah.
I was eventually she asked me why I was doing that. And I was like, well, I didn't want to tip. I wanted to bump the tip up. And
Yeah.
it was a dumb funny story, but it was that was the first. I think I did that one. Did 3 million views.
Really?
On my that was one of the first ones I posted. So
Okay.
I took off pretty fast.
Yeah.
I look at what Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, has done. Like how long it took him to kind of pop off.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, man, I don't know if it's Instagram is just easier or what, but it seemed like why did it take him so long?
You truly make Instagram look easy.
It's
and I know you don't because people don't know, but like for like 6 months we lived in the same building in downtown Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
We would see each other all the time, and I would walk through certain hallways and around certain corners, and you'd be there talking to your camera, and I'd be like, Fritz is doing a video, like don't fuck with him right now, like just leave him alone. Like I'd give you like a hey, and keep it moving, But like I saw you many times. One time I was in my friend's apartment on the 17th floor and like looking down in like the green space by the pool, and we saw you pacing doing a video from the 17th floor. I'm like, oh, look at Fritz, he's doing his thing. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I know you put in the work. Like those videos, like when you watch them, they're a minute long and it's just you talking, right? But people don't realize like how much you think about the story, what the message you're trying to send. But not only that, I've seen you do it where like you're very conscious of like how you say each clip, all the inflections that you do, right?
No, it's really challenging for me, honestly, because it's I draw a lot of so when people see me talking about how I am so when you see me talking in one of my videos, I go and I say the same, like every clip that you see in one of those videos was recorded roughly 20 times for each clip.
Yeah.
So, and I picked the best one out of those, and I do it until I get it right.
Yep.
And that can be really challenging because I basically have a speech impediment. I don't know how much it's coming across in this interview, but it's the kind of thing where I have a really hard time, processing words into sentences and all that jazz, turning my thoughts into speech. And overcoming that has been one of the most worthwhile but incredibly frustrating parts of my life is kind of figuring out how to shortcuts I can use to be more coherent when I speak.
It's almost like you're putting a puzzle together.
Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. It's kind of overcoming a lot of the challenges that have come with autism and all that. It really is in many ways my life's journey. Is how do I exist in this world that's not for me?
Yeah.
And
interesting.
I don't know. It's a lot of work, but it can be kind of fun sometimes.
So what was it like when you realized it was working? You started seeing your followers tick up. You started getting a lot of comments. Like, did it start to get really fun? Was it scary? Like, what was your immediate reaction? Like, oh shit, something's happening.
At first, it was thrilling.
Yeah.
It was the absolute best thing in the world.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh my gosh. I even made a video about how I went from 200 followers to 220,000 in 5 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you guys so much. I've never really had friends, and it's at least good to have you guys here.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And that was you can kind of see a lot of these videos are archived, but you can kind of see these. You can kind of see my mental health go up and down, fluctuate over the course of those first 6 months, especially.
Yeah.
Where I was really, really crushing it at first, and once I stopped crushing it, once things started getting a little iffy, once things started slowing down, and as far as engagement, views, whatever.
Yeah.
It took a toll on me.
Yeah.
I was not doing well.
Right.
And so, but at first it was the absolute greatest thrill of my life.
Yeah.
It was the most fun thing that had ever happened to me.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you have to do anything to bring it back? Because like it was funny, we went and got coffee 4 months ago, and you had 95,000 followers, and right now you have 420. You know what I mean? So you've obviously maintained, and something seems you've broken through somehow, right? Or is it just consistency?
It's some of both. Consistency. People ask me about consistency as whether that's the only thing you need. It really isn't. Because sometimes people ask me specifically, "Oh, if you're just consistent, will it kind of always work?" And the answer is no. But you do have to be consistent.
Yeah.
It doesn't work without that.
Yeah.
And I think that it was kind of regulating myself emotionally and becoming more stable and even keeled myself has really done great things for my content.
Yeah.
And as my content gets better, more people follow.
Okay.
May was a big month for me. I did like 100,000 followers just in May.
Wow, really?
Or something like that. So it was that was so kind of, and I was just pitting out banger after banger because I kind of knew who I was, what I wanted to do, and I could take an impartial eye, right? I could take a fair look at what people were saying, what they wanted from me, and then try to give it to them. Yeah, and that's its own kind of interesting question of what do you want to make, the kind of content I want. Yeah, so. The kind of content that I like to make and the kind of content that people like to see from me is very different. Sometimes it can be.
How would you define those two differences? Like, what do you want versus what they want?
It's a balance. It's a tough balance to strike because I find that I often want to be taken more seriously than people want to take me. Okay, and that's not even necessarily because they don't think I'm a serious person, but just because they're there to be entertained. Yeah. And that's a kind of reconciling my desire to say real, meaningful things with the desires of my audience to laugh,
talk crazy,
and be funny. It's interesting. I don't know.
Do you feel like they like the dating stuff? Like, how did that go over? Because
the dating stuff depends, right? Okay. It's been very hit or miss because one of the things about dating is that people really feel passionately about it one way or the other. Yeah. And the more engaged people are emotionally with some piece of content, the more they're either going to be really mad or really laugh really hard at it or be really mad about it. Yeah. And part of autism, like my condition, is that I struggle with social awareness sometimes. So the missing piece of the puzzle there is sometimes I don't really know what's going to make people mad, or and that applies to my content too. Yeah, like it's my day-to-day life for sure, but it's also I post a video and Fritz, that's outrageous, you can't say that, or even it's not even that it's like it's just thoughtless or careless or whatever it is, and it's I try to come at everything from a good place, but that doesn't always come through. Right.
You're like, I'm just trying to make my 29th video this month, bro. Right.
Yeah, it's really hard to make a bunch of content and never say anything offensive or hurtful, or because I am sometimes okay with being offensive, but there's responsible ways to do it. Yeah. I'm okay with upsetting people sometimes, but I also want to be a good person. Yeah. Right. And that balance is. Sometimes people will be mad at you when you're a good person, and sometimes you'll be a bad person, and they'll laugh along. Yeah. And it's figuring out how to thread that needle is. It's a challenge.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So how do you like your audience? Like, are you really seeing like a community of people being built in there? Are you getting a lot of randoms?
I think that I like to. It's tough because my audience is very diverse because my content is very diverse. I do I talk about a lot of different things. Yep. And the guy who finds me from my very serious talk about how you should respond to a certain question when you're autistic, versus the guy who finds me from this is the guy who talked about boinking his mom's friend. Those are very different crowds. Yeah. And so. I kind of feel a deeper kinship to people who are here for the autism, social skills, getting better at life content. Yeah. Because it's more like me. They're more like me rather. Yeah.
You feel more like you're providing a service for.
I feel like I'm doing more for them than I am for the people who thought one of my videos was funny. Then hopefully they'll see more funny videos in the future. Yeah. And by the way, guys, I love you all, but. Yeah, I do have some preferences there. I like to think that I'm here to help people. Yeah. And if I can make them laugh along the way, that's great. Yeah. But I'm not sure where I want to strike that balance yet. Yeah. So
yeah. So the place where you stay in Phoenix is kind of like known as like an influencer building a little bit. How have you seen, like, as your status kind of grows, like are you feeling it locally here in Phoenix? Like, are you seeing more people? Are more people reaching out? How are things with women?
I can't speak to the building being particularly influencer heavy.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. I know that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd seen it myself.
Okay.
But it's an interesting question. Where the people stop me on the street with reasonable frequency at this point. It's
Okay.
every week or so, someone will say, "Hey, you're that guy from Instagram or TikTok sometimes." And then I'll stop and I'll sometimes take a photo. I try and because I love it when people do that. It's I could see myself getting sick of it at some point, but I don't think I ever will. I really do enjoy every time someone stops and says, "Hey, I know you. I appreciate your stuff. I like your stuff."
Yeah.
Everyone has always been awesome so far.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited by that state of affairs. And so, and as far as your last question, as far as how it's affected my dating life, well, it hasn't hurt. I have been trying. One of the reasons I don't talk so much about dating content quite as much anymore, especially personal, like specific to me, is because I do hope to find a girlfriend and a wife at some point, and I don't want to be that guy who talks about his exes a lot. I want to be considerate of that, and that's so balancing the desire to share these funny stories about whatever or funny anecdotes. So balancing that desire to share these funny stories about my girlfriends I've had or whatever, or the experience, the dalliances I've experienced has. I've tried to steer away from that, but I'll give you something. It's a fun time. Every once in a while, some lovely woman will reach out on my Instagram DMs and we'll hang out or something. But it's a fun time.
Yeah, I like that, man. That's a good time. So, what's your goal with this? You're building this audience. You have a big platform now, right? Like, you kind of have what people wish they had on Instagram, right? So, like, there's so many routes you could go. You could sell courses. You could be a speaker and speak at autism events. And there's so many things. Like, what do you want to come out of this?
Oh, man. People keep asking me that. I'm not sure I have a great answer. I think the best I've got so far is that I really want to kind of build a newsletter list for myself. This is something I've been doing, a kind of paid newsletter that's also going to start incorporating video, kind of longer form stuff that I really want to talk about how, like, the nuts and bolts of how I go through life, how things I'm working on, ways I look at experiences and stuff. And so, that's my focus right now. I don't think it's where I'm going to end up long term. I think I'll keep doing that, but I don't think that's my main goal. Honestly, if it were up to me, I think I'd rather just kind of keep making videos because I feel like I'm good at making reels. And I feel like I'm not so good at a lot of the other things. And so to keep the lights on though, keep my head above water, make some money along the way. My ideal setup would probably be just kind of taking sponsor money. Just doing sponsored posts every week or so. Dashing those in, and I think that's kind of figuring out how to make that motion work is important to me because I haven't done it yet.
That's beautiful, man. That's awesome, dude. Well, hey, listen, man, we're about out of time, dude. This was fun. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
This is a long time in the making.
It really has. We've talked about it so many times. I'm admittedly very flaky on this podcast. This is this is one of my shortcomings on this is I do this because I love to do it and it's really fun, but this absolutely doesn't pay my bills, right? It's like a networking thing. I get to meet cool people. It gives me the ability to do things in this city that I maybe normally wouldn't do. You know what I mean? But I'm a little bit lazy about it, so we had to try 3 or 4 times to make this happen. Even today, I had to push you back an hour and 15 minutes because I was like, I don't have mic stands. And
I wasn't gonna shout you out for that, but here we are.
It's okay. It's my fault. And then, like I told you, I went all the way to my storage unit to get my mic stands, and then I forgot my keys. So here we are holding our microphones again.
Here we are. And you were trying to sell me earlier on how I should start my own podcast. This has been a great time. I think you've swayed me. So we'll see, but I think that's the move.
Honestly, I've been thinking about this while we're talking. You're genuinely good at it. You really are.
I hate to toot my own horn, but as I talk, I feel like this is going to go well. You've got
a voice for it.
It's going okay.
Yeah. You've got a very particular voice. I honestly I've told you 100 times, anything I can do to help make that happen, I'm more than willing to do. I think you have something really unique that you're doing, and I think whatever you do, you'll figure it out. It'll work itself out. But I genuinely think you're natural at this. And with the platform you have, you could do some really amazing things for the podcast. And as you see here, it's not that freaking hard.
Hey, this wasn't that hard, was it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So cool, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming to do this. We'll have you back on again, man. I like my thing about this is Jake James and Friends. This is like the downtown Phoenix podcast where it's just it's not one thing where I like want somebody to come on one time and then we talk and it's done. It's like you got something new you're working on. You want to come talk shit about something you're passionate about. Open invite. You know what I'm saying? We'll have you back. All right.
That sounds like a plan, man. Hey, it was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Take it
all
easy,
right,
boss.
guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You know where to find me on the internet. Do all the internet things. We'll see you on the next one.
Fritz the Dev.
Bye now.
See you guys.
Thank you.